Day by Day with Rabya Wahid. It's life as we live it on Radio Cardiff.
Okay, so we are back, and as we speak, Victoria, I'm dialing Victoria, and Victoria, you're on air.
I'm on air. Hello, Rabia.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited and pleased that we're doing this again today. I've had lots of people really excited that I'm discussing the cost to the extended family and what that means, because I'm so pleased that so many people have taken these, little snippets of alienation and the information and understanding the great impact it's having, and hopefully we can continue to raise the profile of alienation through this. So thank you, Rabia.
Absolutely. You know what? I walked in and the Myriad, the radio thingy, it was all over the place. So my introduction says it all. While I was talking, I was trying to control the computer, control the Myriad. It was all over the place, like, having a tantrum. So everything is under control. So we're going to carry on without wasting anyone's time, because I'm sure...
Are you able to hit record as well, so we can replay?
I actually am not, and that's what I was trying to do, but not to worry. I'm here to rescue. I'm recording you on my other phone, so everything is sorted. So that's why, I know, TMI listeners, but hey, this is real life, this is real radio, this is live radio.
This is professionalism. Yeah, definitely. Well, without much further ado then, I'll kick off, because I know I don't have enough time.
Go ahead.
Today is possibly going to be the one that I cry on. So, alienation, obviously, I've said it's child abuse. I'm not going to skirt around it, and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm ever so sorry if my hashtag no filter does come off a little bit on here. This is an emotive subject for me, and for anybody that's listening. Now, alienation doesn't just affect the parents involved within the family court process. It affects siblings that aren't factored in currently, which I am trying to change to the significant amount of numbers of children affected by alienation. Now, these children become teenagers, these teenagers become adults, and these adults become parents. So what is the cost of alienation to us? Well, I'm going to talk in numbers because it helps. In 2020, we had the equivalent of the Wembley Stadium, 85,000 capacity, being filled annually with children going into foster care through risk of a future emotional harm, which is a loophole in mental health accusation, which is the highest intake. 97% of children being taken into care isn't through severe neglect, exposure to harm, directly or indirectly, but this risk of future emotional harm, the misuse of the Mental Capacity Act, in my opinion. Now, the issue we have with ring fencing, and I'm going to explain what ring fencing is just briefly, is it is the monetizing of the accusation of mental health. So fiscally, as much as we want to say this is a huge cost, this lack of parenting that the nation seems to hold, when we now look at increase of numbers to 225,000 children per annum being placed on orders through the local authority during COVID. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I like to do with numbers and facts, but those are the facts. And it is factually true that as of May 2020, the social care review ended. We looked into the serious failings of social workers, not parents. The social work framework should reflect society. We look at microcosms of society, and we look at sample studies in everything we do when we're trying to test or analyse something. The truth is the barbaric harm and cost through the NHS to uptake in mental health due to parental alienation isn't just to parents. Grandparents, my father, bless him, he doesn't get much of privacy with a daughter like me. He has long-term health effects that have been exacerbated by the fact that not only has he had to bystand and watch his daughter suffer grief, he's been physically abused and attacked himself, as have I.
My God.
We have had to suffer in the sense that he has no control, no parental rights. He's not seen, and he's alienated. He's not seen his own granddaughter for the same length of time I haven't. There's the sisters, then there's the grandparents. Then there is the breakdown in the family network as it stands. Now, you and I both know, Rabia, we've been through it. So for us, we can just talk about it easily. people that are going through this, the first thing I tell them is not to be cruel, is that you will lose all your friends that you know now.
Yes.
You will lose all your family members.
Yes.
People will turn on you that you thought were never going to leave your side.
Absolutely.
Because the most emotive subject is child abuse.
Absolutely.
The accusation of it and parental separation makes one party a guilty person. Now, no one is allowed to know the ins and outs. We have gagging orders, as aforementioned.
Yes.
So how can anyone
So-called
scream and
contempt of
shout
court.
and say, but I didn't harm my children, but I didn't do anything. All I did was ask for help. You know, all I'm doing is asking for help.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is the system is making too much money out of alienating and victimizing either a man or a woman. And then, now this is the sick and twisted part that I really have to highlight. The money they make from the uptake of those children, those psychologically abused and damaged children, then entering into either drugs, alcohol.
Yes.
Substance misuse is huge.
Yes.
And or even better for the pharmaceutical industries, uptake on mental health. Now, if their parents vehemently denied they had any mental health, they are already going to be on the radar as a young adult themselves. If they have suffered alienation, then they will have had adverse childhood effects, which will mean that they have long-term attachment issues, as aforementioned.
Yes.
This doesn't just happen to the child that's been kept from one party. This happens to the siblings. This also happens to the cousins, the nieces and the nephews.
Exactly.
That a child was there for one day and it vanished the next. It's not normal. It's crippling the nation. I know a lot of people are going, oh, she would say this. So I'm going to draw you very quickly to the Ministry of Justice's Harms Report 2020. I implore anyone to look at the statistical facts from women coming out of care, subject to alienation from their parents, or going through the care proceedings, which again is another form of alienation. It's separation, that's alienation, it's child abuse. So what happens to them? Well, the Harms Report was followed very quickly by a book called Rapid Response, which I implore anyone to get involved with. The University of Lancaster and particularly Professor Karen Broadhurst and the Nuffield Institute have greatly researched the subjects around alienation, because no one can really openly, within the professional remit anyway, admit that the government massively profits from child maintenance, alienation, court processes, and until now they've had absolutely no inclination to change it, because the ministers and those lining their pockets and those that are putting the hedge fund ring fencing around mental health, very, very sadly, are profiting. So what we need to do is look at the cost to families. We have this problem at the moment that, society is at an all-time low when it comes to community effort, when it comes to neighbours knowing each other, working with each other. And that can be seen in social services uptake, that can be seen in family courts, that can be seen with the people who have no support network post-divorce, post-domestic abuse, and also post-social services involvement. And we need to change the stigma. The cost to the family unit in the UK is at an all-time high when it comes to alienation, because we have grandparents now making applications to court.
Exactly.
We have laws, that they're having to think about surrounding grandparents. We have special guardianship orders, which I know no one wants to think about, and they are a happy remedy if a grandparent or family member gets one to look after the children. But they, again, isolate the parent and the child.
Yes.
And they put all the control back into the local authorities' hands. And it removes our parental rights, completely removes our parental rights, which means that the legislation which they throw at us, they're not upholding themselves. And it's such a quagmire, Rabia, as you know.
I do want to say that I do want to say, I know, Victoria, these 3 interviews have been very difficult for me, because I get told, why don't you speak? You are very special, that I do not interrupt you, I do not ask questions, because our duty is to just interrupt and ask questions and not to let the other one speak. But just want to tell you that how important you are to our listeners, how important your input is to our listeners, that I let you talk. But I do want to agree with you there that this grandparents suffering, I have a personal case where a mother has been to the hospital with a heart attack just because she couldn't take, the question has just popped up, well, not a question, actually a comment, that she couldn't take all this stress, not seeing the child for 8.5 years. So just wanted to add there that you are absolutely right, and my prayers are with your family and your dad and your children and everything. Please continue. But I did want to say
Well,
that Sarah,
I'm glad that person's actually highlighted
Sarah just said that my mother and my dad has not seen the children for 8.5 years, and when my mum and dad saw them, the children were overwhelmed, they cried, and they were not allowed to see the children unsupervised. They had to share mum supervised contact. On top of that, she has a video of children, acting absolutely fine, loving and caring. But when they went back home, Sarah says, they made allegations that the grandfather made hurtful comments. How do I deal with that? She says.
Well, I have to say I completely echo everything that she said. And I want to explain to people the physical grief. It is not normal for grandparents to be treated in such a way when they have successfully raised their own children and got to that point in their life. It is disrespectful of society to make grandparents share paternal and maternal contact. It is barbaric misuse. It alleviates cortisol levels. Cortisol is the biggest connection to cancer. The amount of people in an anomaly study that have been through the social services or family court which have then had cancer is untold. The people with heart attacks, we have women, grandparents, fathers who have dropped down dead in family court, and in newspapers falsely being reported, oh, they failed a drugs test, or they were off their head on drugs, to take away the absolute stress that is felt in that melting pot of supervised contact, something which I absolutely vehemently despise. And I totally feel the pain. And this is something that drove me to start Family Superheroes. I have grandparents, I have aunties, I have the broken parents that can't scream and shout, and they have this support network that wants to. Then they get battered down because their voice becomes numb and silent. And all that happens is they then develop physical degrees of signs that they are in suffering, and nobody, the NHS, nobody supports this.
No.
And it is terrible. I'm watching my family members degrade around me as I say this word, Siritax, it means scar tissue. I have to become stronger than myself. Why, as a victim of this, should I be looking after the best interests of the people around me who are also suffering? There are 5 stages of grief, and they're cyclic, and no one goes through them all at the same time. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all ring a roses our grief and help each other? So it means that I'm constantly pulling one person up as another person's climbing above everyone else, and it means that no one's emotions are matched, because as one person picks up a bit of information about what's happened or where contact stopped, and it's this false narrative of hope all the time. Well, but if you keep on trying to communicate with the children, then eventually they'll want to speak to you. No, they are in prison just as we are, but with no walls.
Yes.
They are screaming and their voices are coming out as silent. And this is something I really want to say. I have cousins that say, oh, but I've got no PR, but I've known that baby. I used to look after it every Tuesday. That aren't even assessed by local authorities or the courts.
No.
This is something, they're not even seen to be the supervisors for contact. Oh, but the auntie might help you abduct the child.
Wow.
The absolute extremes that the social workers and the courts put as ideals in people's and professionals' mouths is disgusting. Yeah. I've said, how many times have you abducted your child before out of the country?
Yeah.
Well, none. How many times did you not pick your child up from school or run into the school, grab it in a dangerous fashion, put it under your arm and run into a car and disappear for 6 months? Well, never. So why are these accusations coming up against loving, protective parents? Because unless we stand together, guys, they don't want us to be loving, protective parents. They've got social workers in all of the schools at the moment. And that isn't to check for signs of alienation or that the family members are being notified. Oh, no, they're not in the emotional best interest of the children. They're there to check up on lunchboxes and to find ways of showing parents are neglecting and harming their children.
Wow.
And if they're not, to find ways that they might do in the future. Because our children and bullets are the only thing that make our Great Britain money. And if people don't want to believe it, then I would love it if you absolutely ignored everything I said and went and did your own research. And you'll probably, like me, be quite physically sick. And, you know, like I've said, when you read the Ministry of Justice Harms report, Sir Andrew McFarlane's reports, Sir James Mumsby reports, and these are people that have worked within the industry, they know it inside out, and they're all
Well, they
saying the
wrote
same
the Hershey
gobbledygook as I
Bible,
am.
isn't it?
And it's
Which-
because
yeah.
it's happening, it's
Yeah.
child abuse, it's
Yeah.
barbaric, parental conflict. I want to, for want of a better word, smash parents' heads together sometimes. But she did this, but she did this. The mudslinging isn't, you're not just slinging mud at your child's face, you're slinging it at your parents' faces. You have no idea what your parents are going to suffer because of your accusations. Live and let live. You put things behind you, move on, you're not together anymore. How can you work together for the best interests of your children so that they have access to both sides of the family? My daughter was born in 2020. I have friends that have seen both of my older two children in all aspects of their life. Easter updates, you know, we used to meet up for walks. They've never met my youngest child.
I'm so sorry, Victoria.
But this is normality
Yeah.
for over 10.5 million people
Yes.
in England and Wales.
Absolutely.
And I can't begin to tell you, since starting Family Superheroes, and Rabia, you know this, there are thousands and thousands of parents that would do nothing but love their children, never harm them, jump through any hoop, that are being denied that because of parental alienation.
Yes, and it is real. It is real. I must say I was ignorant to the fact that, you know, I just thought, maybe it's just, you know, a group trying to make something up. But the more I read into it, the more I, you know, researched. I must say my research is not as vast as yours, but the more I read about it, and once you go through it, you feel like, oh my God, where have I been all this time? And you feel for all those parents, grandparents, like I said, siblings, family members, extended family members, and the like, you know. So Victoria, is there any hope? Do you think that, I know we've been talking about judges and courts and stuff, there must be a judge, there must be a barrister, there must be a solicitor who understands parental alienation, or if not, because they get courses, refreshers all the time. Do you think that family courts, there are some courts, there are some judges who are impartial, who are not biased, or who are genuinely think about children's welfare?
Absolutely, but do you know what? We'll never know because they won't open the courts. Those judges, and they are coming together now, that have nothing to hide from the Bar of Human Rights Committee, that are upholding the right to a family life, that aren't torturing people within their courts, won't and don't mind journalists coming in and opening up the courts to family members and witnesses that could sit in silence, just as they would in a criminal case, to ensure that, hold on 1 minute, that justice is served. And it's, you know, and we need to take as well, and it's just an aside, accusations in family court that are sometimes criminal are dealt with in a family court, which is the wrong remit. If criminal activity or child protection issues have been breached, and this is someone who's been falsely accused, I'd have no issue standing in a jury in front of my peers as long as it was in the best interests of my children. And that's what the government should be upholding. Not what's in the best interest of them, not what makes them the most money and cost them release, but what is in the best interest of justice and our children. If we're a Great Britain that is heralded by the rest of the universe on how well our legal systems work, I have to tell you that the rest of the world does laugh at us right now. They see the problems we have with our child protective services, and we are known as a nation that doesn't protect and that we have no parental rights. And actually, on paper, we don't.
Mark has just asked me a question. I have to put a disclaimer out that, you know, I'm asking this question totally impartially and as a freedom of speech. I am not implying anything, but he is genuinely wants to know that does bribery goes on in family courts? I mean, we have to be very careful, Mark. It's a very sensitive question. I'm only putting it through because we all have freedom of speech. He said, I've heard that a bribery goes on, social services, CAFCAS, and judges. Mark, you need to understand it's a very massive allegation or assumption.
What I can say to Mark is if and he believes that, and I have to say you're not alone in that belief, there are ways that you can actually access it. And I will say again, look to the Department of Work and Pensions, the Ministry of Justice, look for papers that have been written in the last couple of years.
Okay.
I'm a law student, so I'm very lucky that I'm privy to law journals online. Look at the Law Society's reviews on this. Go to the Bar of Human Rights Committee. Yes, there's corruption going on. We know there is. There has to be, and the system knows there is as well, and it will confirm that with the papers that you read. So the more you know, the less you know in this situation, because yes, there's corruption. We know that because of the failures. And my answer is, let's not keep on weeding out this thing of, oh, look, point and blame, point and blame. I like to take those issues and then safeguard from them. Prevention is cure. I don't care what anyone says. If you prevent predators or negative people then from influencing our children, then it will cure the issue that we have. And sorry for a shameless plug, but a lot of you probably know anyway. I just want to play something very briefly, Rabia, and this is the voice of children today in Cardiff.
Sure, we have 4 minutes, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, where's that? Sorry about that. It's hold on. So today, as you know, it's the final court date, and those are the voices of Muslim children that are screaming, stop RSE, give our parents their rights back. And this does link very closely in with parental alienation.
Wow.
If the government is willing to teach your children whatever it wants about sexual education, then it isn't really going to care about your parental rights when you're discussing sexualized abuse and or long-term psychological abuse.
No.
So it highlights the government's ethos that you have in Wales and in England, that as long as they're making money and enforcing their own agenda, they're not bothered. And this is why this is probably going to be the most difficult one for me as an ending, because I have 3 girls. They don't deserve the world that they live in right now, and as a parent I feel it is my personal responsibility to make that change, but I can't actually do it on my own. So I need other parents to give a toss about their kids and about their grandkids and about future generations, and to live with pride in their life and to stand up for what our governments and what our courts and what our systems are doing to us as parents, and be the change, make the change, and stand with us.
What a beautiful message and beautiful quote to end our show with. Victoria, you're not alone. You're here with you. Radio Cardiff is here with you. I don't think it's happened in the history of Radio Cardiff, and especially in my show. Let me just talk about my show. Since 2018, that I've given someone a slot for 3 days in a row. So you can imagine.
God bless you. Thank you so
you can
much
imagine. We're live on air all over the world. You can imagine how important this was to me. Not because personally, because I understand what parental alienation is, and I understand what people are going through, and I genuinely care about my listeners and people out there. So you're not alone, and I care about you as well as a human being and as a sister in humanity. So even though we've never met, just want to put it out there. Just wanted to put it out there. This is nothing biased. We have not even met, but I'm doing this for the children. I'm doing this, as Victoria said, for the future children and your grandchildren. So you're not alone, and thank you so much. I know we are always short of time, I know, but you've done an amazing job, and you've given us so much information to digest, and I promise you that this is not the end of this parental alienation topic. You will be on Radio Cardiff and on Day by Day very, very shortly. And like I said, keep the faith, keep strong, and you're not alone. Everyone is with you, because when we say everyone is with you, we are with the children, who have been alienated from their parents, and with the parents and the grandparents and the family and the like. So thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy woman, because you just told us you're a law student, you're a mother, you've got family
Family Superheroes, yeah. So if anyone needs any support, please go to Family Superheroes support page. It's on Facebook. My contact details are on there, and we'll do all we can to try and help you.
There you go. So you're a very busy lady, and you've taken time out for us. Thanks ever so much. I wish you all the luck, genuinely all the luck in the world, and I will speak to you very, very soon, Victoria.
Speak to you soon. God bless.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, listeners, that was Victoria Leonard. Very emotional interview. because we all are human, and let's just say I'm not a robot. I am supposed to be professional, but I am quite overwhelmed with what Victoria have said today. And on that note, I'm going to be finishing the show with a message. Just carry on. Victoria says never give up. I say never give up. And you know, everyone out there who has faith, they'll say to you that never ever give up. Time to say goodbye. I will speak to you, or you will hear from me next week. Until then, take very, very good care of yourselves. Thanks ever so much, Cardiff. Thanks ever so much, UK. Thanks ever so much, universe. Take care.